So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to start kind of working with a player sprite. So the sprite that I'm going to put on the screen here is not the one that we'll be using in the regular game. It's just more like a test for you to understand how it's going to work. So what we're going to do is we will come over here and we will say at the top, we're going to say from OS import path. Okay, and this is what we're going to use to have Python go through your computer, your operating system, and then pull out the images that's going to be stored in some kind of like a directory or a file or anything. So down here now in the settings, I'm gonna actually skip a line, and I'll do images and sounds /sounds, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna say game folder. Okay, and I'm calling this a game folder, and I'll just show you an example of what it is that I'm using right now. But if I have a game folder, say here, you see I have my folder's name is shooting game. Okay, and inside of the shooting game folder, there is an image folder, and then there's my main program, and then there's like a bunch of, this is where I just put all the tutorial programs. So my game folder, I'm gonna say path.join, okay, and I'm gonna be joining. Well, I'm sorry, actually, I'm not going to start off with that. I apologize. I'm going to say path.dir_name, and this is going to be the directory name. So dir name, dir stands for directory, which is the folder name. Okay, and I'm setting this essentially in the next line. I will be joining a folder that has that's labeled image. So in here, I'm going to say image folder, okay, which should be located inside of the game folder. And I'm going to say path.join, and we're going to join game folder. Okay, so it's going to be looking for the file name, right, or the folder name, I should really say, the folder name, comma, image. Right, now it will do this on its own, and it's going to search through the folder name called image, which is right here. Okay, and that's because we named it image, img. All right, below that, I'm gonna say, let's call it Kirby equals pygame.image.load, okay? And inside of these parentheses, we're gonna say, well, what are we gonna be loading? We're gonna be loading path.join, right? And the reason why we're using path.join is because this joined the game folder and then the image folder, right? Now we need to join now, or create a path from the image folder to the actual image. So this will join the path from the image folder to the image name. In this case, my image name is, so I'm clicking here, I'm joining it with this kirby.png. So that's gonna go as a string here, kirby, kirby.png. All right, make sure all my parentheses are good. And that's where we're going to keep right there. And then we're going to create a class here. We'll say class player. Okay, and inside the parentheses, if you remember from the last game, we put pygame.sprite, uppercase S on the second one. All right, and this is just going to be the settings for our player class. So we're going to say define init, okay, self. And then below that, we do this really long line that we have to add, pygame.sprite, we'll make a lot of mistakes today, sprite underscore init self, right? And inside of here, we're then going to have an image, so self.image. Now, normally what we'll do is that we will create like a surface, a pygame.surface, and we'll use that in order to test like how things are going to be working. That will be our base foundational like image. But just because I want to show you how a real image is going to work, we're going to put Kirby, since this is the image that we uploaded, and yes, it's going to be an image of Kirby. Then after that, we'll do self.rect, because we have to have a rectangle is going to be around the image, and the rectangle is what we're going to use to move that image. So self.rect is equal to self.image.get underscore rect. Here we go. And then what we'll do after that is we'll center that. So self.rect.center. Okay, now center is going to be both an X and a Y. So equals width divided by 2, and then height divided by 2. Okay, so whatever the width and height of your screen, in this case we chose it to be 600 by 800, half of that it'll be directly centered at 300 comma 400. Right, and I believe now the last thing we have to do is we'll come down here to our game sprites, and we're going to create one entire group. Now I like to think of this group, think of this as like a container, and inside of this container you're going to be putting in a bunch of things. So in this game we'll be putting in like a ship, then we'll be putting in like a group containing all the asteroids, a group containing like all the bullets that are going to be shot from the ship. There might be upgrades. So think of it as like a container, and instead of individually updating and drawing each one to the screen, I can call this all sprites and update them all at the same time. So all sprites is equal to pygame dot sprite dot group. Okay, so this is what we're going to use to literally group all the sprites. Okay, and you don't have to group all of them, but the ones that we are going to place in this container, those are the ones that we can update across the board at the same time. Okay, so we need to create a player object. So player is equal to, now this is the name of our class was player. Okay, this gives us access to all the attributes inside, as well as all the methods that we're going to be creating as well. And then lastly, all sprites dot add. Okay, so we created a group. Oops, we created a group, but now we need to add this to that group. So add player. All right, then coming down here, okay, what we'll do is now for this update, all sprites dot update. Okay, now the reason why we can use this dot update is that if we're using this dot update, that means that every single in each of the classes there has to be a method that has a dot update, and we will have that. Right now we're just drawing the image to the screen, and so we'll use all sprites dot draw to the screen. Okay, screen being the variable that we use to create that display, and so that's where we're going to be putting it on. And if I run this program, see, might be some errors, hopefully not. You'll have this huge Kirby on there, right? Looks amazing. A little bit too big, so what we'll do is we're gonna scale it down a little bit. So I'm gonna exit out of this, exit out of that, and right up here, what we'll do is we'll say Kirby is equal to pygame.transform.scale. Okay, and remember that we're really getting all of these here from our pygame.org/documents. So in this area, I can literally go to like transform. So this is the stuff for Pygame, right? There's an option here for transform, and under transform, there's pygame.transform.scale. This is to resize. So I'm not just like making these names up; they are built into Pygame, and then I guess the only hard part is that you have to go and like look to see what it is that you want to do, and then there should be a way to do that, or a function to call. So we are here, and we're going to scale. Now the first thing is, what do you want to scale? We want to scale the image Kirby, which is what we created up here, and then we'll make it 100 by 100. So this is in pixels, so at 100 pixels by 100 pixels. Okay, so now when we go ahead and run this, we should have a decent size Kirby right here. All right, now for this, well, actually I want to show you how to move the image, but that might take a couple of minutes. So before we do that, let me just go ahead and show you something else that's pretty important, because we're going to be using a couple of new terms. So in this example here, we have Kirby, right? So Kirby's the image. Okay, this is the rectangle around that image, and then there are a bunch of different ways that we can associate this image. So there is like this top piece, okay, and the top piece being up here. There's the right piece, the bottom, the left, and then the XY. Now wherever your coordinate is, it doesn't work the same way as a graph. So your X comma Y is all the way at the top left portion of the screen. Okay, so if you're centering it, All right, unless you tell it that it's going to be centered, then it will start here. But if you just say that I want to start at the X and the Y location 300 400, it would start here and then create the image, right? There are also things here now. Now when I say top, and that's another thing I want to say, is that it's not this direct spot here top. I mean, like, it covers anywhere on the top part of the image, the right side, the left side, the bottom, and all that stuff. Okay, then there's also another stuff that we can use called dot width that will take the width of the image. Okay, get the pixel width and the height of that. So we'll be using that as well. And also there's something called like mid top, mid left. So mid implies middle of the top. So this would be considered the mid top, the mid bottom, the mid right, and the mid left. Okay. A lot of these things we're going to be using in this game. So I want you to get used to the idea of, self.rect.top or self.rect.left. Okay, that just means like the left side of the rectangle. All right, so I'm gonna end the video here, and in the next one we'll talk about how to move the sprite across the screen and up and down. Okay.